Boys and girls, she's going down. I'm talking about that voodoo Jezebel, that cuckoo Nancy Pelosi lookalike, who made up these false accusations against Trump, saying he essayed her at some store in New York. But tell me she don't look like Nancy Pelosi. At least Nancy has a little chest. All this witch has is spells. Out of all the cases they brought against Trump last year and the last few years, I hated this one the most because it made no sense. This chick is a nut job. The very nature of her accusations were copied from a TV show, literally came from an episode of Law and Order. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Trump has gone to the US Supreme Court, officially asking them to overturn that very erroneous verdict from the lower courts in New York. He wants the justices to invalidate the $5 million civil judgment in the case that found him civilly liable for essaying her and also defaming her. Everything about this is ridiculous. Somebody accuses you of something you're saying you didn't do, and you going after that person's claims, calling it a hoax and a con job, is somehow defamation against them? Utterly ridiculous. So the jury in 2023 awarded the judgment after finding Trump liable following her allegations that he assaulted her in the dressing room of a Manhattan department store in 1996. Trump would have been 50 years old in 1996. Unless he had some crazy vision problems, I'm pretty sure he still liked women that looked normal. Trump's lawyers wrote in their brief to the Supreme Court that there were no eyewitnesses, no video evidence, and no police report or investigation. Instead, Caroll waited more than 20 years to falsely accuse Donald Trump, who she politically opposes, until after he became the 45th president, when she could maximize political injury to him and profit for herself. It's still unclear whether the High Court will take up the case. A federal appeals court last year upheld the judgment after Trump argued that U.S. District Judge Lewis Kaplan, who oversaw the case, had erred in allowing testimony from two women, Jessica Leeds and Natasha Stoynoff, whose allegations of sexual abuse Trump has denied. Ladies and gentlemen, the fact that a man's entire reputation can be destroyed with just a few words from a false accuser is seriously sad. We all know exactly what this is. These are lies. Me and Grok, well, I did most of the work, just came up with a list of all the inconsistencies in her allegations against the president. Number one, uncertainty about the exact date and year of the incident. Caroll was initially unsure whether the alleged assault occurred in 1995 or 1996, later specifying it based on a friend's timeline of working with Trump. She also couldn't recall the specific month, season, or date. Trump claimed this lack of detail showed she had no details on the date, month, year, or decade. Can you imagine something that tragic happening to you? Such a traumatizing experience, and you suddenly can't remember it? Unbelievable. In interviews and statements, Caroll described the encounter as a fight instead of a, you know what, stating, "My word is not the victim word. I have not and I have not been R-worded," and emphasizing that she fought. So in her mind, she didn't just let it happen. She was like fighting him, like doing Superman moves. Her statement that most people view R-word as sexy. Actually, most people don't. During a 2019 CNN interview, Caroll argued that most people think of R-word as being sexy, which Trump's defense used to question her perception of the incident. And then the similarity to the 2012 Law and Order SVU episode. Caroll's account of a R-word in a Bergdorf Goodman dressing room mirrors an episode from a 2012 episode of the show involving a R-word fantasy in the same location. She acknowledged awareness of the episode, but denied seeing it or drawing from it. You see why I'm so angered by this case? Inconsistency regarding the dress. This is a big one. Caroll claimed to have worn a Donna Karan dress during the incident, but Trump alleged she changed her story about the year because that specific dress design wasn't manufactured until after her initial claimed timeline. The dress wasn't available in 1994 or early 1995. Lack of screaming or immediate reporting. Caroll testified she did not scream during the alleged assault and did not report to police at the time, which Trump's lawyer questioned as inconsistent with typical responses to such an event. Delay in coming forward. It took Caroll over 2 decades to publicly accuse Trump, which the defense highlighted as a potential inconsistency. Not a potential inconsistency, it's definitely an inconsistency, pressing her on why she didn't speak out sooner despite her public persona. No surveillance footage or witnesses. You would think if something like that happens at, I guess, a high-end store like Bergdorf Goodman, there would just have been somebody who noticed something was off. The store confirmed no video footage existed from the time, and no witnesses were present, which Trump used to argue the incident couldn't have happened without notice. Absence of DNA evidence. Test on the dress Caroll kept showed no sperm, and despite request, Trump delayed providing a DNA sample, which the judge viewed as a tactic. This was barred from trial discussion but cited as a gap. Again, just think of that. Trump delayed providing a DNA sample. Maybe that's because he knows exactly what this is about. He didn't want to feed into this nonsense, but even so, he won with that. There was no evidence. Discrepancies across accounts. Variations appeared between Caroll's court testimony, deposition, public statements, book, magazine excerpt, and interviews, such as shifts in details about the encounter. That's because lying takes a lot of effort. You have to consistently keep up the lie, and it gets harder to remember details that you deep inside know didn't happen. That's how you catch someone in a lie. If it feels like someone had to rehearse an answer, it's most likely a lie. If something really happened to you and they ask what happened here, you would know exactly how it happened every time. Old social media post and lifestyle. The post about sexual topics, including sex tips from her dog, and naming pets Tits and Vagina T Fireball, were used to question her claimed trauma and shame, political motivation and funding. Trump's team argued Caroll had a political agenda as a Democrat funded by opponents like Reid Hoffman, making her claims implausible and biased. Emotional response inconsistencies. The defense pointed to mismatches like claiming shame but also fear, and not exhibiting expected trauma behaviors. You see, this is the problem with false accusations. You have to send lawyers to go defend you against lies, and they can only defend you by attacking the accusations. And so it gives the accusations like some credibility. Think of it this way. If you and your spouse got into an argument, maybe one of you is accusing the other of cheating, infidelity. Maybe the one person says, if you didn't cheat on me, then why were you here at this time when you're usually not there at that time? And then the spouse getting accused goes, yeah, but the reason I was here at that time was because of this, not because I was cheating. See, I'm right. Instead of just saying, no, you're being ridiculous. You're acting crazy. None of that happened. This conversation is over. Because the spouse getting accused knows I didn't do anything wrong. So it's ridiculous to me to even hear this, and I don't want to defend where I was, because I wasn't doing what you think I was doing. I don't have to justify myself to you. The great thing about our legal system is that everyone gets their day in court. But what's also bad about our legal system is that everyone gets their day in court. Every claim gets litigated, and it takes one corrupt judge to sympathize with the accuser. And in this instance, it was a political case. The judge hated Donald Trump. The people funding the lawsuits were people like Reid Hoffman. And so we got a civil judgment holding him liable for something that should be a crime. And you know the reason they held him civilly liable is because the statute of limitations had expired. It just annoys me so much. Think of this. You get accused of doing something. You defend yourself through the public because the accusations were done publicly. There's no police report. It's been 2 decades since that thing supposedly happened. So you defend yourself. You react the right way by saying, no, this is BS. This is a hoax. She's a con. And then she sues you for defaming her by calling her a con and calling it a hoax. And then a jury, not of your peers, but of the worst people that hate you, all Democrats in New York, they say you're liable civilly for accusations that should get you liable criminally. Do you understand how weird that is? These false accusations really bother me because a man's career, a man's life can be wrecked by one woman coming out and saying, he did that to me. How many athletes have you seen this happen to? A guy with millions of dollars and lots of fame. He's an eligible bachelor with a lot of women that want him. He uses that attention to his benefit and in a way uses one of these women to pleasure himself and maybe doesn't give her a relationship. And because she might have thought he wanted to be in a relationship with her. Now she feels duped and feels dumb and feels used. She raises her hand and says, "It was the R word." And that guy's reputation and career is wrecked if he's not already retired. He has to spend millions on lawyers, and after months, years in the legal system, he finally gets acquitted, but his reputation and everything else about him have been destroyed. I'm not saying those things don't happen. There are real victims, and this is bad for them too. No one takes these things as seriously anymore because everyone gets accused. As a society, we have to apply common sense to everything. Donald Trump at 50 years old was 6'3", lean, rich, famous, beloved by all kinds of women. He definitely indulged, for sure. He was married multiple times, had a lot of girlfriends, and I'm not going to accuse him of being monogamous to all of them. They want us to believe that because he's like a power-hungry person who wants to get what he can't have, that he was willing to do something like this. I will never believe that. Thank you all very much for watching. Let's see what the Supreme Court rules on. If they can read what we just read together, not come to the conclusion that she is a whack job, nut job, who should be ignored and ruled against by all the justices, then this country is finished. God bless and goodbye.